Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you to today's EPC Thought Leadership Forum with the President of Cyprus, Nikos Christodoulidis. I'm very happy that we have him with us today. We all know how dense the timetable of a president is, but of a president who is also in the role of the council presidency, the pressures are even higher. So we're very much appreciative of the fact that you are with us today. We're in the midst of the presidency, and the president will outline the priorities, the vision for advancing the EU's agenda in the upcoming months. We're in the midst of the presidency, so a lot has happened already. And it's the second time that Cyprus is holding the presidency, the second time since the first time was in the second half of 2012, so 14 years have passed since then. I very vividly remember 2012. We were still in the midst of trying to solve the euro crisis, and since then we've experienced very different phases of what we at the EPC call the perma crisis. Let me just mention the annexation of Crimea, the migration crisis, Trump won, Brexit, COVID, and today we're definitely living in a different world compared to where we were in 2012. In this new era, we're facing immense challenges, uncertainties, risks, but also, as we just shortly discussed with the President, potential opportunities, which can be used in these difficult situations. However, if you look into the future, I'm rather confident that the uncertainties and the challenges we're facing will not become less. We probably will be confronted with other challenges and uncertainties, and I'm putting things diplomatically. In this context, the Cyprus presidency is operating in very important times. The EU must deal with a number of challenges outside and inside the European Union. The list is long. Obviously, what we all have in mind is the current situation in the Middle East, the war in the Middle East, especially how it is affecting the people in the region itself, but also affecting those who are close to the region. So Cyprus is obviously among those who are strongly affected about what is happening in the Middle East. We already see the consequences of that war, and there will be a lot of potential. There are a lot of potential other consequences which we're not aware about at this present point in time. Then we have the war in Ukraine, which in February 22 was a watershed moment, and it changed everything, and we still struggle to cope with that in the 5th year now of the war. We have the consequences of again putting it diplomatically, a disrupted transatlantic relationship. We have the need to strengthen European defense and security. We need to think of the future of EU enlargement with respect to the Western Balkans, with respect to Ukraine, Moldova, and maybe even a northern enlargement. And we need to foster Europe's economic competitiveness. And last but not least, we have increasing threats to our liberal democracies inside and outside Europe. And I could go on. And all these challenges are interlinked with each other. If you look into the agenda of the upcoming European Council of tomorrow and Friday, you will see that a lot of these issues are on that list of things that need to be discussed. Ukraine, Middle East, competitiveness, defense and security, and migration, and the next multi-annual financial framework, which I haven't even mentioned. So a lot of things on the agenda. It's not always easy for the EU 27 to find compromise or to even find consensus, and this is why it is very important to have a presidency which is trying to push from its role within the institutional configuration to push the agenda, and it's very important that the Cyprus presidency is trying to strengthen Europe's strategic autonomy. That is something which is actually really much needed. There's no need to introduce the President. You all know him, and he knows Brussels and the EU very well. He was the spokesperson of the Cyprus presidency in 2012, so there's the link, the personal link to that. He was Foreign Minister of his country between 2018 and 2022, and he was elected President of the Republic of Cyprus in 2023 and is a member of the European Council since then. So he knows the operations of the EU from within. We have agreed that the President will deliver a speech, I reckon around 20 minutes. Then I will engage the President in an exchange in order to get the ice breaking, in order to get to questions, comments, and the reflections and answers from the President. So thanks again for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very glad to be back in Brussels with this Cyprus weather. Despite the challenges in our region, challenges that we are used to, let me start by saying that Cyprus remains a safe and stable operational hub for business, for tourists who are in conditions of full normality in Cyprus. Let me, at the outset, I would like to thank the European Policy Centre for the invitation and the opportunity to engage with all of you. Our conversation today is timely. It comes, as it was mentioned correctly before, halfway through the Cyprus presidency, and also at the moment of inflection, both for the European Union and also for the region that Cyprus is an integral part of, Eastern Mediterranean, the greater Middle East. It is no surprise that the EPC hosts this dialogue in its 30 years of active engagement and contribution. The EPC has been consistently dedicated to fostering European integration, and now, I will say more than ever, your evidence and analysis, your platform for thought-provoking discussions is vital in informing European policy. Dear friends, we come together today at a moment of remarkable uncertainty, heightened tension and volatility across Europe and our wider neighborhood of the Middle East and Gulf. And actually, it is defining moments like this that test institutions, test partnerships, and indeed leadership. And yet, they also bring at the forefront our union's ability to act with resolve and, above all, with unity. Yet, I adamantly believe that it is in these moments that space shifts and creates openings and opportunities for decisions that would have never happened otherwise. For more integration, for projecting European power and leadership in the world. Opportunity for our union to stand out in the midst of unpredictability as the most reliable, predictable, trustworthy partner, and to move decisively for a European Union that is truly autonomous. That is, dear friends, the central objective that permeates all 5 pillars of the priorities of the Cyprus presidency that has as its motto an autonomous union open to the world. Autonomy, of course, is no longer a theoretical aspiration, but as a driving force for action. Autonomy as the next necessary step of European integration. A union strong from within, able to demonstrate the necessary internal strength, to cooperate with external partners whenever possible, while at the same time, while also acting independently whenever necessary. A union that looks outward, engaged with all its neighbors in a 360-degree approach, remains committed to open trade and partnerships, and strengthens strategic autonomy without turning inward. Committed to international law, of course, and able to bring together its interests and its priorities. Cyprus also understands that European autonomy is multifaceted, from defense and security to energy and trade to competitiveness. Dear friends, I really believe, and I will explain why, that this is Europe's moment to define and reshare its future through an assertive and non-negotiable autonomy trajectory. And let me be clear. I don't agree with my very good friend, the Secretary General of NATO, that European autonomy is unattainable. In the past days, Cyprus has in fact proven that European autonomy is both possible and real. But we have proven that if we are confident in what 27 member states can achieve together as a union of 500 million and the world's biggest economic and trading bloc, there is no limit to what we can achieve. Let me explain what I mean. As you know, on February 28, a new crisis unfolded in the greater Middle East. Cyprus is not in any way, is not part of the conflict. We had a single isolated incident with a drone at the British bases. What followed, though, I believe, will make history books. Greece, France, Italy, Spain, and Netherlands immediately reacted positively to my request and deployed means and personnel to enhance the defense and security of Cyprus. Cypriots will never forget this act of solidarity in action, not just statements, nice statements, but solidarity in action, and it deeply touched my people. Essentially, we may not have triggered Article 42.7, which, as you know, states if a member state is a victim of armed aggression on its territory, the other EU member states have an obligation to provide aid and assistance. But Cyprus essentially tested Article 42.7, and we did so successfully. And that can be the beginning of something much greater for the European Union. Cyprus, let me repeat it, together with Greece, France, Italy, Spain, and Netherlands, gave flesh and bones to the mutual assistance clause in Article 42.7. And this action also embodied the basic premise that the security of one member state is inseparable from the security of the European Union as a whole. That when one member state is attacked, the entire European Union is attacked. At the same time, this experience highlighted something equally important. Europe must not only be able to invoke Article 42.7, Europe must also be fully capable of implementing Article 42.7 effectively. And when this article is finally invoked by any member state, Europe must be ready to respond swiftly and decisively, placing the safety and security of all its citizens at the forefront. We must put this mechanism in place, and it's something that I will raise tomorrow during the European Council. Dear friends, Cyprus may be a small member state of the European Union, one of the smallest member states, but we are a member state that from the southeastern frontier of the European Union understands better than most what is at stake, what lack of security means in real terms, how indispensable cooperation and diplomacy are, and why the region of the Eastern Mediterranean, the region of the Greater Middle East, is inextricably linked with the security of Europe. A member state that is an integral part of the Middle East, that we know the region not from textbooks, not from reporting, we know the region from geography, proximity, and long-standing, excellent diplomatic relations with all countries of the region. For us, for Cyprus, engagement with our neighborhood is both a geographical reality, but also a strategic necessity. Ours is a presidency that, long before the crisis that we have today, plays strengthening of relations with the Middle East and Gulf, as well as maritime security, at the heart of our work. And this focus couldn't be more pertinent. This brings me to the developments currently unfolding in our region. From the outset, Cyprus has been absolutely clear, we were absolutely clear in our position. We unequivocally condemned any unjustifiable and indiscriminate attacks against our partners in the region, and we stand in solidarity with them. For Cyprus, the situation is not abstract. Our geography directly links us to the region, and of course it links the region to Europe. The recent incident involving, as I mentioned before, the British bases on the island demonstrates how unpredictable this conflict can be. And let me be clear. Cyprus's long-standing role is a humanitarian one, as a safe haven, always part of the solution and never part of the problem. A member state that stands in time of crisis as a European Union's lighthouse in the Eastern Mediterranean, an actor that becomes a driver and a vessel of dialogue and diplomacy, a pillar of stability, security and cooperation, not only because of geography, but because of conscious political choice. That is what we have done since the start of our presidency, and this will culminate at the April informal European Council in Cyprus, when we will host discussions bringing together European leaders and partners from the wider Middle East on concrete projects and proposals at the regional level. In short, at the helm of the presidency of the Council of the European Union is a member state that is an adamant believer in the European project, in cooperation and bridge building, resilient, focused, results-driven, even in the most adverse of circumstances. Cyprus is geared to operate in this way by default. And to Cyprus, the presidency of the Council is above all an opportunity to give substance to European autonomy, to deliver tangible results on the European agenda despite the challenges, because in our view, the European Union does not pause when crises arise. To the contrary, the European Union, during crisis, it accelerates. Dear friends, we mark almost 3 months into our presidency, and I want to take today's opportunity to highlight some key areas of our work. These have been months of intense engagement and negotiation, continuous coordination and steady progress. So much has been achieved, and at the same time work is intensively underway according to our roadmap in order to deliver even more. We have, I believe, been demonstrating in practice that Europe can respond, can act, and can deliver. And that is how we committed to conduct our presidency from the very beginning. Focus on substance, on cooperation, and above all, delivery. Delivery in strengthening Europe's defense readiness, security, and preparedness. Delivery on competitiveness, delivery on true energy union. Delivery in strengthening our collective resilience and social cohesion, addressing challenges faced by our citizens, from housing to advancing in our quest for a healthy union. And of course, advancing negotiations for a new MFF that becomes a real vehicle for a stronger European Union. Let me be more specific, starting with security and defense. Russia's war against Ukraine shattered any illusion we may have had that peace and stability in Europe was a constant. And it made it clear that we must act decisively for stronger European security and defense. An act that I'm proud to say we did. In the past year, as a European Union, we have achieved more progress than in decades before. This is a clear proof of what we can achieve together under adverse circumstances. I'm dealing with the European Union since 2011 as Sherpa, as spokesperson, as government spokesman, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, now as a President, and I remember those endless discussions about the need for security and defense, endless discussions without any decision. And I remember very well, last February, informal European Council, I think it was during the Polish presidency, but it took place here in Brussels, that what we decided back then and what we did in 1 year. Defense and security and support to Ukraine at the forefront of our presidency. And talking about Ukraine, let me say that we're a member state that understands firsthand what invasion and occupation mean. As presidency, we worked rapidly in the Council to translate the political decision of the December European Council for the 19 billion loan into legal text so that Ukraine will receive the financial assistance required in a timely manner. We achieved an agreement with the European Parliament on the regulation implementing enhanced cooperation on the establishment of the Ukraine support loan for 2026-27 to address urgent financial needs. We also put forward a compromise proposal on the 20th sanctions package, and despite the challenges, we continue our outreach and intensive efforts to reach consensus. And it is my hope that tomorrow's European Council will allow for a way forward. And on Friday, we agreed on the Council for the renewal of sanctions. On defence and security, as Council Presidency, we moved forward with the approval of Member States' national plans under the SAFE programme. At the same time, we are working intensively to conclude the Defence Readiness Omnibus package and to reach a general approach at the June Foreign Affairs Council on the military mobility package to strengthen Europe's defence posture by addressing regulatory, infrastructure and capability barriers that slow cross-border military transport. Being able to swiftly and decisively deploy capabilities across Europe is essential to ensure that the Union can respond rapidly and effectively when solidarity must be translated into action. And all these steps bring us closer to ensuring that Europe is truly able, what I mentioned before, Europe is truly able to give practical meaning to Article 42.7 when it matters most. Effective migration management is also a core dimension of security. Our presidency is focused on supporting coordinated preparation across Member States to ensure that the Migration and Asylum Pact is fully operational by June 2026. In parallel, we are advancing work on the returns regulation with the aim of strengthening the effectiveness of the European Union return policy. Dear friends, European strategic autonomy and competitiveness go hand in hand. As presidency, we have placed competitiveness at the heart of our mission, organizing our work in the Council around the two very important summits on competitiveness, the February retreat and tomorrow's European Council, where we will take specific decisions based on a roadmap with timelines on how to proceed with this dossier in the months and years ahead. We all know that in today's interconnected world, the current situation in the Middle East undoubtedly impacts global energy markets, and not only, and through that, our economies. The volatility of energy prices remains a major concern for citizens, businesses, and industry. As Europe, we must act decisively to address rising energy prices and send a clear message to citizens and industry that we have learned the lessons of the energy crisis triggered by the Russian invasion to Ukraine 4 years ago. And I'm optimistic that the conclusions we will adopt tomorrow will reflect that Europe is now more proactive and better prepared. Beyond the current turmoil in the Middle East, Europe will need a lot more energy in the coming years for industry, new technologies, artificial intelligence, and data infrastructure, to name a few. This is why I strongly believe that strengthening Europe's energy sovereignty through a true energy union is a strategic priority. This means accelerating investment in infrastructure and interconnections and advancing initiatives such as the European Union Grids package, on which our presidency is working with the aim of reaching a Council general approach by June. Simplification is another key component of competitiveness. It's extremely important for our businesses, citizens, and of course, to attract investment. As Council Presidency, we're working intensively on the Omnibus package presented by the Commission, and we aim to complete the Defence Omnibus this semester, and we are ready for trialogues on other packages when the Parliament has adopted its position. We have already achieved a negotiating mandate on one proposal under the Food and Feed Safety Omnibus, and last Friday a negotiating mandate on the AI proposal under the Digital Omnibus. We also need to address strategic dependencies by diversifying and securing market access. This forms part of the third pillar of our priorities, a union open to the world. And here, expanding our network of trade agreements is very, very important. The Mercosur and India free trade agreements were historic successes. One of the earliest deliverables of the Cyprus presidency was the adoption of two Council decisions authorizing the signing of the European Union-Mercosur Partnership Agreement and the interim trade agreement between the European Union and Mercosur, marking a major step after 25 years of negotiations. We have also advanced important legislative initiatives aimed at enhancing Europe's competitiveness, including the reform of the Research Fund for Coal and Steel, which supports innovation and the green transition of industrial sectors. At the same time, we need more free trade agreements. We must conclude as soon as possible FTAs with the UAE, particularly now, and this will also allow us to capitalize further on the India free trade agreement and to give substance to IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. And we need, of course, to resume negotiations on implementation of the European Union-US trade framework agreement, which is very important for predictability and market confidence. Despite all challenges in the transatlantic relations, I firmly believe that there is no other path to dialogue. Part of this priority pillar of the Cyprus presidency is also enlargement. The Union's, I will say, most successful foreign policy tool in promoting stability, democracy and prosperity across our continent, and tangible proof that our model works, our model is attractive to other countries. Two INGCCs for Montenegro have already taken place, and work is underway for the establishment of the ad hoc working party for the drafting of the accession treaty for Montenegro. At the same time, work on the interim benchmark assessment reports for Albania is progressing, which will pave the way for closing of the first chapters. Yesterday, front-loading work for Ukraine and Moldova is advancing full speed. Yesterday, informal ministerials took place under our presidency here in Brussels to present work on 3 clusters respectively. Our presidency remains committed to advancing discussions with partners who aspire to join the European Union while ensuring that the enlargement process remains credible, merit-based, and anchored in the Union's fundamental values. And I really believe that the treaties provide the necessary flexibility. Dear friends, developments in our region are certainly deeply unsettling, and they remind us in the most alarming manner how fragile stability can be. But they also remind us on something equally important. Europe cannot choose the moment in which it must lead. Leadership actually is required when circumstances are most difficult. And the time for our Union, for the European Union to lead is now. At the helm of the Presidency, at the helm of the Council, is a presidency, is a member state that deeply believes in the Union's ability to act and to lead. And it embodies that urgency in the way the presidency is conducted. A presidency that remains fully committed to its mission despite the volatility around it, fully implementing its program. And let me convey this message from this podium. There is normalcy, security, safety in Cyprus. Our economy, one of the highest performing economies in the European Union, with estimated growth for 2026 at 4%, conditions of full employment, unemployment in youth, one of the lowest in Europe, and public debt in 2026 estimated at approximately 50%. A country that continues to operate normally, and of course, our tourism sector remains fully active. Cyprus, and I'm proud to say, continues to serve as a reliable hub of stability and connectivity in the Eastern Mediterranean. Dear friends, crises may shape the moment, but they do not define our direction. Our direction is to be defined by us, and our direction is clear: an autonomous European Union open to the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, first of all, for your kind words about the EPC in the beginning. Much appreciated. But thank you very much for your frankness, but also for your positivity. What you ended with, saying that the future is defined by us, I think is very much true. And as you said in the beginning of your speech, we are living through remarkable uncertainty, unpredictability. This is a defining moment, I'm quoting you, which is testing us. And these moments require a lot of leadership. And giving your role, your personal role, as member of the European Council, but also your role as the Cyprus presidency, let me start with two questions which are directly related with your country, with your role, and then I will also have a look around in the room to see who else wants to pose a question. I have tons of them. My first question, and I assume that doesn't come as a surprise to you, relates to the situation in the Middle East. And as you were highlighting, you do not know the regions out of textbooks and theory, but you know the region out of personal and historical experience. And that is very much true, and that was seen over the past weeks. What I would like to ask you, whether you could be a bit more concrete in terms of what your expectations are from us meaning the European Union, in this difficult moment to reach a situation which will be less uncertain, which will help us to overcome the situation we're currently in. So how can the EU, and what would be your hope for the EU to show the leadership which is required in the situation in the Middle East, also in terms, and I'll be very frank, of influencing what the administration in the US and the government in Israel are doing in the region. So how can we as Europeans show the leadership which you have been asking for and which is required in the concrete situation?
Okay. Let me... We're a member state of the European Union since 2004, but we are for ages also a country of the region, a country of the greater Middle East. And replying to your question, I will present what the countries of the region are expecting from the European Union. This is a region that is a neighborhood of the European Union. And the countries of the region are expecting the European Union to approach them as partners and not, I'm sorry to say, this is how the countries of the region they are feeling, not through a neo-colonial approach, that as a European Union we are going to the countries of the region to impose, you need to change this and this and this in order to work with you. But at the same time, and I want to be frank, because as I told you, I'm conveying the messages, the feeling of the countries of the region. When we want to send them military equipment, there are no issues at all. But when we want to, to cooperate with them, we are putting 100 of conditions. We need to approach the countries of the region as partners. And I have to say, because I'm always optimistic, with the role of Cyprus and some other member states, I will say Greece, I will say Italy, I will mention France. We're very happy that during the last years, the Commission is engaging with the region. We were insisting, Cyprus was insisting, for the need to engage with Egypt. Egypt is a huge country, it's a pillar of stability in our region, and I was very glad that in 2024, I went to Egypt together with the President of the Commission, the Prime Minister of Greece, the Prime Minister of Italy, the then Prime Minister of Luxembourg, for the signing of the comprehensive and strategic agreement with Egypt. That was a very positive message for what we are doing in the region. I was very glad that the President of the Commission, she went to Jordan for a similar reason. Back in 2024, when in Cyprus we were facing for 2 weeks boats coming from Lebanon with migrants, I will never forget this. I called the President of the Commission, I told her, I need your support. She came in Cyprus and we went together in Lebanon in order to discuss the issue and find a solution, and we found a solution with the support of the European Union. 2024, when Ursula went there, it was the first time ever that the President of the Commission visited Lebanon, a country that is 17 minutes flight away from a member state, from Cyprus. So there are a lot of examples that I can mention. I was very glad that recently both the President of the Commission and the Council we were discussing, they visited Syria, they visited Lebanon, they visited Jordan. So it's very important to engage with the region. and approach the region, approach the countries of the region as partners. If we want to have a geopolitical role as a European Union, we cannot just discuss one issue. Ukraine today, no question about it, is the most important issue for the European Union. But at the same time, we need to have a 360-degree approach as a European Union. And this is the role that my country is playing. The bridge between the European Union and the countries of the region. And that is why we decided, together with the President of the Council and of course the President of the Commission, to host this informal summit in Cyprus, bringing together the European leaders, all 27 member states, with the countries of the region. Not just for discussion and exchange of ideas, but to announce specific projects, European projects for the region.
Which are very much required. Let me ask you one more question, and I'm looking around for those who want to. I see two, so we'll take that afterwards. You were describing the situation after the drone attack, the single incident, and the support which you got from a good number of European countries, strong support. You mentioned Greece, France, Spain. Also UK, I think, was involved in the discussion you were having on how to deal with the situation, to put it mildly. But I want to refer to 42.7, because you said it was not officially invoked. However, that's my wording, de facto, it was used. And there are lessons to be drawn from this. And I say this with a heavy heart. It might very well be that we will require the usage, de facto or de jure, of 42.7 in future. Let's hope not, but we need to be prepared potentially for the use of it. So if you take the example which you have now experienced and draw some general conclusion from that as to how we need to make sure that we formalize the process of using potentially 42.7 in a way that actually we will be able to de facto and de jure use it in the way which it needs to be used. So what does your experience tell you in terms of what needs to be done, and how can you, in your role as presidency, try to push that debate forward, but very much from your own experience? And history shows that when a member state has a presidency and has an own experience, it has very much the leverage to push things forward compared to if it's not that case. So 42.7.
Let me start with the UK.
I should have not.
I'm not anymore a diplomat, so I can, The presence of the British bases in Cyprus is a colonial remnant. And when this crisis is over, we need to have an open and a frank discussion with the British government. And let me say that with the current British administration,